Love it or hate it, the military is often on the cutting edge of technology. There's nothing like a good war to get the military thinking outside of the box to come up with new solutions to old problems. Usually that problem is how can we kill people, but like from a distance. But along with things like rockets, the internet and Wi-Fi both started off as military ideas. Not all of their ideas were winners though. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. In the 1840s, Manifest Destiny was all the rage. Americans were crossing into the West by the tens of thousands, and we were staking claim to basically everything the light touched. It was one of the motivations behind the Mexican-American War. When it became apparent that the United States was about to capture all this new land from Mexico, people were already thinking of ways to cross it. You see, the southwestern United States is a literal desert. The Sarlacc pit from Return of the Jedi was filmed near Yuma, Arizona. So donkeys, mules, horses, and humans had a hard time crossing that desert due to a lack of water. So in 1847, before the war was even over, Major G.H. Crosman and Major H.C. Wayne submitted a report to the War Department, which is now the Department of Defense, suggesting that camels might be the way to go.
For strength in carrying burdens, for patient endurance of labor and privation of food, water, and rest, and in some respects speed also, the camel and dromedary are unrivaled among animals. They'll go without water and with but little food for 6 or 8 days, or it's said even longer. Their feet are alike well suited for traversing grassy or sandy plains, or rough, rocky hills and paths, and they require no shoeing.
The report reached the Senate Committee on Military Affairs, which is now known as the Senate Armed Services Committee, where it was mostly laughed off as ludicrous. Some senators even said that the desert was too cold, which it is, believe it or not, but camels are from the desert. They're already used to that. One senator who really took to the proposal and tried for several years to get it implemented was Jefferson Davis, a man famous for always supporting good ideas. In 1853, Jefferson Davis was appointed as Secretary of War under President Franklin Pierce. He continued to pressure Congress and the president to allocate funds for a small experiment to see how viable the idea was, which they finally did in 1855. Congress granted $30,000 to the project, about $866,000 in 2019 money, which is 1/10 of the price of a single M1 Abrams tank. Davis wasted no time, and 2 months later, Major H.C. Wayne and Lieutenant D.D. Porter of the USS Supply were sent to the Mediterranean to buy the first batch of US camels. Major Wayne went on his own little side quest to learn about camels first. He stopped at the London Zoological Gardens to learn about their care, and then interviewed members of the French Camel Corps in Paris. Yes, there was a French Camel Corps. They just used them to colonize Algeria. Then he went to the Crimea, where camels were actively being used by the British in the Crimean War against Russia. It was there that Wayne decided that dromedaries were preferable to camels. Back in the day, the term camel specifically referred to the two-humped Bactrian camel. It was significantly larger and slower, but could carry more weight. A dromedary is the one-humped Arabian camel. It was quicker, could still carry a considerable load, and was much easier to ride. In fact, Arabian camels had been used for military purposes for as long as the horse. Some militaries even outfitted them with cannons. I know that's just a drawing, so you might not believe me. So here's a real picture. Look at that. That's awesome. So anyway, Wayne and Porter were ordered to buy several different kinds of camels from different places in order to test which ones would be suitable in America. The story of their adventures is actually kind of funny. They became somewhat experts in the camel trade and were able to refuse gifts of diseased, worthless camels from the Viceroy of Egypt. Porter even had to construct a camel deck on the ship because they were so much larger than horses. In the end, they paid about $250 each for 33 camels from 5 different countries. 21 larger Arabian camels for general hauling, 9 swift dromedary camels for chasing off Indians, direct quote from Jefferson Davis, 2 Bactrian two-hump camels, and 1 Boogdi hybrid camel with only 1 hump. A few camels died on the trip over, but also a few were born. So in May 1856, 34 camels landed in Indianola, Texas, beginning the US Camel Corps. The Texans laughed at Wayne, saying there was no way a camel could carry more than a mule. And I'll give it to them, camels do look pretty awkward. But in front of a crowd, Wayne loaded 4 bales of hay weighing a total of 1,256 pounds onto 1 camel, and it stood up and walked away without any struggle.
To convey to you the surprise and sudden change of sentiment when the camel, at the signal, rose and walked off with his 4 bales of hay would be impossible.
That was enough to make front-page news in Texas. Mules can carry about 300 pounds. A Bactrian camel can carry up to 1,500. One of the larger Arabians can carry 1,000 pounds, and the swifter dromedaries can only carry 700, which is still more than double what a mule can carry. The Camel Corps was stationed at the newly constructed Camp Verde, Texas, about 60 miles northwest of San Antonio. But it wasn't just camels that were recruited into the army. Major Wayne also hired 5 Arabs and Turks to help teach the Americans how to properly care for and ride the camels. They actually make an appearance in several movies about the Camel Corps.
Praying. Caterwauling heathens, that's what they are.
Don't seem to matter much how a man looks to God, long as he looks.
The most famous of them was High Jolly, though his real name was actually Haji Ali, and the Americans just couldn't pronounce that. Though that wasn't his real name either. It was actually Philip Tedro. He was a half Greek, half Syrian from Turkey. Though it wasn't actually Turkey at the time, it was still the Ottoman Empire. But like many people who convert to Islam and complete the Hajj, he changed his name to Haji Ali. Many of my fellow veterans probably recognize that word as the derogatory term for Muslims, but it actually just means someone who completed the Hajj. The closest Christian word would be pilgrim.
Think back, pilgrim.
So when you call someone a Haji, you're basically calling them a pilgrim.
Well, take some advice, pilgrim.
Do you know how or when that term became a pejorative? It comes from Johnny Quest, the 1960s cartoon. This character is named Haji. He's actually Indian, and while there are Indian Muslims, it's pretty clear in the show that he's Hindu. But you know, all brown people are basically the same, I guess. Anyway, Haji Ali, or High Jolly, was so important to the project that he also appears in every movie about the Camel Corps.
While we're performing introductions, let me introduce you to Haji Ali from Smyrna. We call him High Jolly.
How do you do?
Effendi.
There you are, High Jolly. No pork in yours.
Okay.
Haji Ali is the name, or if you prefer, as your barge driver so quaintly called me, Had Jolly. Camel instructor extraordinaire at your service, sir.
The guy playing Haji Ali in this one is actually Italian, but you know, all brown people. I sure am glad whitewashing is no longer a thing in Hollywood. It took the Americans a while to get used to the camels. The saddles are a bit weird, and camels are notoriously ill-tempered and stubborn. They also smell different, not any worse than a horse, but different, which always made horses, donkeys, and mules afraid of them. They were this weird, foreign-smelling animal. They'd always be restless when camels were around. It was such a problem that Brownsville, Texas, banned them from the city limits. But Wayne continued to acclimate them and even began running experiments when it became obvious that camels weren't well suited for combat. They were unwieldy in close quarters and couldn't sprint for very long like a horse. In short bursts, camels have a top speed of 40 miles an hour, while a horse is only 30 but can sustain it for much longer. But the camel did beat the horse when it came to long distances. During one experiment, he set a team of 6 camels against a team of 6 mules in a race to San Antonio and back, carrying a cargo of oats. The mules carried 1,800 pounds and took 5 days, while the camels carried 3,600 pounds and took only 2 days. That's double the cargo in half the time. So it became pretty clear that camels were much better suited for transporting cargo as part of a wagon train. In 1857, Buchanan was sworn in as president. As a result, Major Wayne was transferred to another post, and Jefferson Davis was out as Secretary of War. But I have a feeling we'll be hearing from him again. And their replacements were just as impressed with the camels so far. So in June of that year, they were set to the task of helping E.F. Beale create a wagon road across the 35th parallel, from Fort Defiance, Arizona to the Colorado River, kind of like the southwest version of the Oregon Trail. He took 25 camels with him in the ultimate test of their ability. It's actually the plot point of every movie featuring the Camel Corps, except for Hawmps, which is just terrible.
And look what gets off the boat! A bunch of raunchy, mangy Hawmps.
The expedition left in August 1857, and it took a while for Beale to warm up to the camels.
They pack their heavy load of corn, of which they never taste a grain, put up with any food offered them without complaint, and are always up with the wagons. It's a subject of constant surprise and remark to all of us, how their feet can possibly stand the character of the road we've been traveling over for the last 10 days. It is certainly the hardest road on the feet of barefooted animals I've ever known.
You see, while horses need horseshoes, bare camel toes can take quite a beating. I'm sorry. The camels traveled 30 to 40 miles a day. They basically ate whatever they could find on the trail, including cactus, and would go 8 to 10 days without water. The horses and mules would start to freak out after only 36 hours. Here's a painting from the artist that went along with the expedition. As you can see, the horses and mules are basically drowning themselves in the river, while the camels are just hanging out in the back, giving absolutely zero f***s. Several times during the trip they got lost while looking for a water hole, and it was the camels that went out searching that saved the day.
I believe at this time I may speak for every man in our party when I say that there's not one of them who would not prefer the most indifferent of our camels to 4 of our best mules.
They arrived at the Colorado River in October 1857, which was the biggest test, because for those of you familiar with fording rivers, things don't always go your way. This was compounded by the rumor that camels can't swim.
Oh, it's said that camels can't. Is it true that camels can't swim? I don't know. We're about to find out.
Camels can't swim. No, instinctively afraid of the water.
They can swim. In fact, the older of the two movies shows them doing it. Okay, we'll just ignore that really bad cookie cutter frame there. The point is that they really can't. What? I think we're gonna need Captain Disillusion to crack this one. All of the camels, fully loaded, successfully swam across the Colorado River, which is an average of 300 feet wide. 2 horses and 10 mules drowned during the same attempt. Beale's expedition continued to Fort Tejon, California, a distance of 1,200 miles covered in 4 months. He left the camels there and retraced his steps a year later, extending the road from Fort Smith, Arkansas, through Fort Defiance, Arizona, to Fort Tejon, California. Much like the Oregon Trail, Beale's wagon road later became a railroad, and then a rather famous highway where you can get your kicks. Route 66. You can still hike the trail and find signs like this. The camel experiment was declared a huge success. The Secretary of War petitioned Congress to buy 1,000 more camels in 1858, 1859, and again in 1860. But then the Civil War happened, starring our old friend Jefferson Davis. Because of Beale's expeditions, 31 camels were in Fort Tejon, California, which remained part of the Union. They were used for local hauling and map surveying during the war. But 80 camels were in Camp Verde, Texas, and were captured by the Confederacy. Many of the camels were abused or even killed, but a few of them were put to work by Confederate quartermasters. An entire infantry company in Mississippi used a single camel to carry their luggage around. Apparently, even Robert E. Lee was impressed by the camels. When the war ended, all of the remaining camels fell under US control again, but they didn't know what to do with them, because the railroad was about to render them obsolete. The first transcontinental railroad was underway, and as a result, people didn't really do wagon trains anymore. So some of the camels were sold at auction. Camels went to circuses or civilian transportation companies. Even High Jolly bought a few and used them for years. Others were simply turned loose in the desert. Wild camels were spotted for decades afterward. Douglas MacArthur apparently saw one in 1885, and there were sightings in 1901 and 1913, and even one near the Salton Sea in California in 1941. But that's nothing compared to the legend of the Red Ghost. In 1883, a woman in Arizona was trampled to death by a camel who left behind tufts of red fur. Then it terrorized prospectors in the surrounding area and was rumored to be carrying a dead rider on its back. Once, a hunter took a shot at it and the head fell off. Because why not, right? It made its way down to Mexico, where it was known as El Fantasma, Colorado, and was eventually shot and killed in 1893. Still wearing a harness, but the rider must have been shaken off. And because everything comes full circle, legend has it that the headless rider was High Jolly, even though he was still alive at the time. Haji Ali died in 1902, and he was such an important local figure that they put up a pyramid-shaped monument in his honor in Quartzsite, Arizona. It also contains the ashes of Topsy, the last US-branded camel, which died in 1934 at the age of 80. One of the other camel's bones were sent to the Smithsonian and are still on display, even mentioning its time in the Camel Corps. The camel experiment was never officially called the US Camel Corps, but I mean, come on, what a cool name. And because of the success of the experiment, camels were imported and used all over the West by civilians starting their own Camel Corps small businesses. Using skills you can master at Skillshare.com by going to skl.sh/knowingbetter5. Skillshare is an online learning community with over 25,000 courses taught by experts in their field, or desert. wherever. Take this course in debt financing to learn how to fund your small business the smart way and don't overpay for mangy, diseased camels. Then take this course in project management so you can successfully communicate with and hire the best camel trainers this side of the Mississippi. You can learn this and much more for less than $10 a month. But if you head over to skl.sh/knowingbetterfive, you can get 2 months of unlimited access to all of Skillshare's courses for free. You'll also be supporting the channel when you do. While the military may have been the source of the ultimately failed camel experiment, the idea was eventually picked up by civilian companies. Maybe not to the extent that Wayne, Beale, or Davis would have liked, but that's due more to the railroad than to the camel. While you may think it was a silly idea to bring a foreign animal to the United States to try and change the culture and landscape, I'd remind you that horses are foreign to America too. The United States is a nation of immigrants, not only with its people, but with its ideas. We often borrow foreign ideas and make them better. Hamburgers, pizza, even the car are all foreign inventions. The camel was a foreign idea that probably would have worked if not for the bad timing of the Civil War, and an even better foreign invention coming along. Many of the things that you probably thought were American aren't. So take a look around. You're surrounded by foreign ideas, which isn't so bad because now you know better. The State of the Union is on Tuesday, so join us for some group therapy. I'll also be at VidCon London next week, so there won't be a new video for a while. But if you'd like to add your name to this list of camel jockeys, head on over to patreon.com/knowingbetter. Don't forget to survey that subscribe button, follow me on Twitter and Facebook, and join us on the subreddit.